What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? This is your brother Shabazz. We coming to you live with the proper perspective. Starting off a little slow today. I'm gonna tell you right up front. Might not be here too long tonight. Feeling under the weather. The snowstorm has hit. I mean, it hit a couple of days ago, y'all know, but I'm gonna tell you, as something in the air, the energy is very low today. We're gonna get through this thing. Now, what we talking about tonight? Let me make sure I got everything situated. Let me see. So, what's going on? What's going on? It looks like I got everything situated. I hope it's working. Tonight, we talk about reparations, really. Honestly, technically, that's the only thing I want to talk about, but can't talk about reparations these days without talking about the FBA, and that's the problem. So, reparations, it's reparations is about law. It's not about hashtags. It's not about feelings. So the question tonight is, who's going to win, FBA or reparations? Now, that might sound like a contradiction in terms. What do you mean? Well, this is what I'm gonna tell you what I mean. But let me do my opening. Let me do my opening bit. Peace to all the positive people in the universe. What's good, Richmond, Virginia, and hotep to the Pan-African Black world, and whoever else knows either how to or at least knows that we need to look beyond the smoke and mirrors, put puzzle pieces together to see the big picture. Now, I'm going to play a video clip in a minute or two. But this is the thing that I'm talking about, or I wanted to present tonight. Peace, Dr. Dennis Ossaw Winkler. Get that brother on the screen and on the stage. What's going on? Hey, if you want to come in, just let me know and I'll drop the link in the chat. But peace, everybody. Check out Dr. Dennis Ossaw Winkler, his page also. Go over there and hit his like button and subscribe. And then make sure you hit the like button on my video and subscribe there as well. But we are talking about this thing tonight. Because here's the thing, one of the things that kind of irritates me. And I know, not everybody in the Black community believes in the idea of reparations. Okay, I'm cool with that. Not everybody in the Black community believes in campaigning and fighting and working to get reparations. Okay, I'm cool with that. But the funny thing to me is when you do have people who agree that we're owed the reparations, that we deserve the reparations, that we should get reparations. Okay, I got you. I feel you, because that's what's up. That's what's up. But when you have people who actually do believe in reparations, you would think that folk would say, hey, I agree with you, you agree with me, we need to work together. Oh no, not in the FBA world. In the FBA world, they don't care if you want reparations too. They don't care if you agree with them. They can't work with you if you don't meet their anti-immigrant code. And what's even worse than that, what's much worse than that, is when you do your best to set that to the side, or even if you say, look, I'll play along. Okay, I'm mad at them too. Even if you do that and then you say, hey, yeah, okay, so we don't like the immigrants, but can we work on the work? No, that ain't good enough. That ain't good enough. Peace to Carrie Prince 6158. Peace. Thank you for joining. If you're watching, I see I got a couple numbers in here. If you're watching, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. And keep it going in the chat. So this is what I'm saying. Even when you get to the point where you're trying to work and build with them, that's when you come to realize, wait a minute. But when are we going to do the actual work? And so this is what I come to. But before I get there, before I reach my conclusion, because that's at the end, I'm going to play this clip. Brother by the name of Afro Think Tank. You probably already know about him. You probably already know his channel. You know, he's much bigger than mine. So, but he makes some very valid points. So he makes one interesting point that I'm going to play tonight. So let me see if I can pull this thing on up to the screen. Okay, so here we go. Now we're going to play this section and then come back.
Group to try to talk to him, right? But one thing I didn't do, they want to join the live. I said, let me go into the comment section and see before I join the live and waste my brain cells. Let me see if I can get one question asked, right? Answered. And so they were talking about delineation, right? And how that's what they're all about. They were kind of bouncing around from we about delineation to we about reparations. We about
Now I'm gonna pause for a hot second. Just because, well, that's probably one of the rules, you know, when you play other people's videos. But he's talking about this thing. When you encounter the FBA folk, you know, first they tell you today about reparations. And then you start, okay, let's get this thing rolling. Let's get it cracking. And before you know it, we about delineation. Well, hold on now. You know, it's like, you know, think of it this way, you know, you out and about on the town, at least like back in the day, you know, you going doing things, you shopping at the mall or whatever, and, you know, you get back to your car and somebody done left a flyer on your car. Come to the blank. So it's like, come to the rally and we're going to talk about reparations. And then you go to the rally and they're talking about delineation. Well, wait a minute, that's something else. It's like showing up to a burger joint. And they say, all we got today is chicken. Something ain't right. But so that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to set up for you for this for what Afro Think Tank is talking about. Because they bounce back and forth.
delineation. We about reparations. So I said, okay. I said, how do you plan on getting those reparations? Simple question. Right? Then I asked, what political institutions are you going to lobby to get a bill down to get something on the floor for African Americans for reparations? Then I asked, what non-governmental organization is going to sponsor or lobby on behalf of African Americans for reparations? Let me tell you something. You would think that I went in there and started talking about their mamas and their underage daughters.
Now that's a little funny, but again, here's the thing. Now y'all tell me, do those sound like unreasonable questions to you? Like, what is the plan? What are the mechanisms that you're going to use? But when you ask this kind of question, it's like you're dropping bombs on people. It's like turning on the lights and all the cockroaches start flying. But like I said, I'm gonna keep on. Let's go back and let him get the rest of his little soft section. About 20 more seconds.
They was upset. Oh, Afro Think Tank. Everybody in the chat, they was just talking shit. They was like, oh, Afro Think Tank, you musty, stinky, Afro Think Tank. I was like, I didn't answer nothing. I was like, oh, here we go. Y'all just mad because I'm in the sun in January. I'm like, all right, I get it, right? Afro Think Tank, your musty. All I got was your musty dreadlocks. Your stinky dreadlocks. I was like, so if it's about delineation, what are you guys delineating to? I'm telling you, I was not even disrespectful. The host got offended. He was like,
okay, so that's all I'm gonna play for now, or for the night, you know. So like I said, setting the stage. You know, he's talking about the idea of him making an attempt to have a substantive conversation. And I may do some more about this. But when you make an attempt to have a substantive conversation with these brothers, it's like all hell breaks loose. And so then, you know, what I did was I made a comment. And I said, every time you pressed FBA on one simple question, how do you actually get the reparations? That's when the mask starts to slip off. Because I'm not concerned with the slogans and the vibes. I don't care about the identity labels. I don't agree with them. I'm not necessarily of the mind that I will ever entertain using it. But that's neither here nor there. Because the label don't get you to check, so to speak. Now, this ain't about internet beef. What I'm concerned about is the actual mechanism. What is the legal pathway? What is the institutional process? Because reparations is not a feeling. Now, it may be rooted in, it may be grounded in, it may stem from feelings of having been harmed, but the feelings don't win the law claim. The feelings is not the root of the legal claim. Now, here's the problem that I have, because when you really start digging into this thing, the situation becomes self-evident. FBA don't have a legal strategy. FBA got outrage, they got anger, they got isolationism, they got political funneling. And now increasingly, if you slowly peel back the layers, you begin to see that FBA is a smokescreen for being a MAGA, for being a black MAGA, for being MAGA aligned. They just dress up this Republicans conservative shtick in pro-black language. And that's the real problem. Now, I'm not here to say, I'm not defending, I'm not saying the Democrats are our best friends. But if you can see that the black MAGAs, that the Republicans are quite possibly, politically speaking, our worst voting rights oriented enemy, I got a problem with you. So let me just frame this issue. Reparations itself. Now, we can use social media for education. We can use social media for entertainment. And if you come up from the realms of hip hop with KRS-One, you can use reparations. You can use social media for edutainment. But reparations itself is not a social media movement. It ain't a street movement or a cultural movement or an identity movement. It is a juridical project. And to me, that's a big word, juridical. What does that mean? Here you go again. Let me see if I can throw that on the screen. Juridical movement. I'll just throw that up there for a hot second. Reparations is a juridical movement. That means it's about jurisprudence. It is about the legal system. Now, to attain reparations, you have to have certain legal frameworks in place. Not an Instagram page, not a YouTube page. You got to figure out what is the legal standing, what is the legal classification, where is the jurisdiction, what is the class definition, what is the liability attribution. I'm giving a lot of big words, tricky words. But this is all the stuff that we need to be talking about when we talk about reparations. If you're not talking about this, what are you talking about? You have to learn the statutes and learn how to navigate and work on the statutes. There are case law that have set precedents, and there are case law that have killed precedents. There are federal pathways and state court pathways. There are enforcement mechanisms and institutional strategies. Now, when you bring this kind of stuff up, that's when the FBA crowd says, look, we are about a delineation. Hold up, player. Now you flipping the script. Now, I ain't saying it's easy. I ain't saying it's simple. It's not. If it was easy and simple, our elders would have already attained it and acquired it. They've been working at it. And I know the FBA like to say, well, the older generation didn't do nothing. No, they did a whole lot. They just didn't get final success. But at least they have been working in the courts on the federal and or on the state level. The FBA is working on social media. And that wouldn't even be so bad if on social media they were talking about and discussing all of these legal parameters that truly uplift the knowledge base, the wisdom, and the understanding of the community so that we all know what we're dealing with. But all they want to talk about is, oh, Jamaican might get in the line and cut you out of $1. And here's where the manipulation begins when they get into this stuff. They use reparations as an entry point. For them, reparations is not a destination, it's a funnel. It's a system. It's a pathway. They attract you with justice language. But then as soon as you show up to the rally, as soon as you say, yeah, I'm interested, they want to reframe who the enemy is. To get reparations, you got to know who your enemy is. Your enemy is Uncle Sam in any of the multiplicity of ways that Uncle Sam manifests itself. Your enemy is not a Jamaican brother that owns a restaurant down the street. Your enemy is not a Somali sister that owns whatever she owns. Your enemy are the congressmen and the senators in DC. Most of them happen to be in the Republican Party, but maybe that's for another day. But they want to reframe who your enemy is, and then they want to isolate you from coalitions. Don't work with them because they trying to cheat us. It's the Yorugu folk that's been trying to cheat us. It's the Yorugu folk that told the elder congressman, who's now an ancestor, we not gonna let your bill come to the floor so that anybody can vote on it. Because they knew there was a certain number of people who would vote yes. Oh no, they're gonna vote yes. We're not even gonna bring it to a vote. That's who the enemy is. But they don't want you to think about who the real enemy is. They want to redirect your political behavior. And before you realize that you're no longer organizing for reparations at all, you're being repositioned inside someone else's political agenda, the Yorugu political agenda. And interestingly enough, the end point always ends up, well, we either need to just don't vote at all, or we need to get off the Democratic plantation, because I heard the Republican plantation got air conditioners. Long live Donald Trump. It's a political seduction. It's a hit job. Damn near criminal when you think about it. It's grift. It's hustling. I almost want to say it's akin to, nah, I'm not going to go there. I wanted to say drug dealing, but I'm not going to go there. There's an allure that they're working on. So maybe lure is the better word. They are luring you into a trap, family. That's what they're doing. You know, like in mythology, in the realms of mythology, y'all heard about the sirens. They didn't drag sailors off ships by force. They sung sweet melodies. They appeared to be beautiful. They would hypnotize. They would disorient. They would redirect the focus and the compass. And before you know it, the ship crashes. Not because of violence, not because of revolt, but because of misdirection. That's what's going on with this FBA thing, with this ADOS thing. You know, I like to say it's COINTELPRO, but they love you can't say COINTELPRO. They even shut that program down. Okay. So I ain't gonna go there. But this is what I mean. So like I said, I made the comment and I made the statement. The more you try to push, the more you try to force a conversation about how do we get the reparations, the more they dance around it. And so here's what happens. Or here's what happened when I made the comment. Somebody came up and said, they ain't never trying to give us FBA nothing. Now I said, okay, well, hold on. Now, depending on what you mean, I might agree with you. I'm trying to build with you. So I said, first off, let me say this. I think I agree with you. You might be right. They're not trying to give us African Americans anything. Y'all notice what I did there. But they never have. And quite frankly, they're never going to try to give us anything. Not without political pressure. They haven't given us anything but chains. That's the only thing that they ever willingly gave us was chains. But let me go a little bit further. Because now when you have these kind of conversations, you always got to double check. You always got to ask the brother or the sister. You always got to ask what you mean. Because they'll say things that sound like we on the same page. And then before you know it, you're like, wait a minute, huh? So let's go a little bit further. Because like I said, I'm not sure what you mean when you make a comment like that. So when they say, I don't know, if they actually talking about white supremacist power structure, when they say they, then yeah, we might be on the same page. That statement could be referring. But the problem is you don't know unless you ask. And if you don't ask, you may end up in a situation where the they that they talking about and the they that you talking about, it ain't the same. Because in the FBA echo chamber, the white supremacist power structure ain't always the they that they talking about. And that's why I got an issue with it. In the FBA lexicon, the they quite often is referring to other black, quote unquote, immigrant groups. And here's the thing. A lot of times, it ain't even an immigrant. They've gone so far down this rabbit hole. You could almost say, okay, so you talk about these brothers and sisters that just got here yesterday, fresh off the boat. That ain't who they talking about. They talking about brothers and sisters. They talking about black immigrants who've been here for 30, 40, 50 years. They talking about people that came in the 60s and the 70s, and now they got children and they got children's children. Y'all talking about grandkids of immigrants. And so that's a problem. If that's the case, I would simply have to say, you're going to have to fix this. You're going to have to change this. This is not how you build anything positive. Now, maybe you don't want to build anything positive. But I'll say, if you're talking about the white supremacists, then we on the same page. But if you talk about the immigrants, the black immigrants, I say you're fighting the wrong people. I would even say, catch me out on a limb here, I would even say technically the black immigrant group don't owe us nothing other than respect. And if you encounter a quote unquote black immigrant individual that don't respect you, you have every right to stand your ground about respect, as you would with anybody else, another black African American person. But you don't turn that into a whole brigade and army of vigilante hatred. You don't go joining ICE. You don't even, if we won't even stand up to ICE, if we won't even stand up to police brutality, why you gonna stand up against? That's the same thing as back in the day. The classic stereotypical example of you being in a club and a white guy bumps into you. Oh, my bad. Sorry about that. A black guy bumps into you and now you're ready to pull out guns. That's self-hate. I'll give you a better example. Because you're fighting the wrong people. It's like getting into the ring and you recognize, that's Mike Tyson in his prime. And instead of trying to go fight Mike Tyson, when the bell rings, you jump out and run after the coach. That's what you're doing. The white supremacist is Mike Tyson in his prime. And instead of running dead into the center of the ring to fight the opponent, you want to run out the ring and fight somebody that ain't got nothing to do with this fight. That's the problem. That's what's going on with the FBA thing. So, like I said, my problem is with many of these circles, with many of these characters. Let's get back to this. They. The FBA is not the African Americans, because they refuse to engage the courts. Why are we not talking about courts and building coalitions? You get reparations through law. You get reparations through Congress. You get reparations through Senate, which means there has to be political votes. So the notion that, hey, I know how we can fix this. We gonna show them. We just not gonna vote. Really? That's your brainchild? You don't want to deal with international law, because international law has been shown to be a key strategic mechanism that gets governments to get up off their keisters and do some of the stuff that they need to do for their people, for their citizens. We could be talking about class action strategies. We could be talking about institutional alliances. We could be talking about legal infrastructure, federal policy pipelines. No, we want to talk about the Senegalese. I think that's really what it is about. That's how we get it. FBA don't want to talk about not one litigation pipeline, no serious legal framework, no one institutional strategy, not one. So here's the contradiction. And here's the problem. You ain't gonna get it. Even if everything you said was absolutely 100%. We don't look like them. We don't eat the same foods as them. Even if all that's true, they won't stand up for us. That's what another brother was telling me. He came on my live. He been in my comments on 2-3 different videos. You keep forgetting the fact that they won't even speak about reparations, which is absolutely 100% not true. But even if that was true, how is they speaking on it going to get you the check, the bag, the legislation? Joy Reid did a whole documentary about it, but he don't want to count that. You got to get votes. To get votes, you need coalitions that go to DC and apply the pressure to the person sitting in that congressional seat, in that senatorial seat. You don't get that without political leverage. You don't get political leverage talking about some immigrant that charge you too much money to get your hair done. You need institutional legitimacy. Now, they quick to tell you, here's the thing. Once you start bringing up all these facts and all this hardcore political reality, again, that's when the game flip starts. They quick to tell you, if you say, look, you're going to have to get organized in order to get this thing off the ground. Because as it stands now, I technically disagree with this move, but this is what everybody is doing. I think it's much more successful. I think it's much more powerful if there was one unified strategy and approach. That's what CARICOM is doing. They are doing one unified approach. So I think it would be better if we were focused on having conversations on how do we get HR 40 over the hump. But everybody had decided, no, we're gonna do this state by state. Okay, cool. So that's the path most people have taken, state by state. But see, when you go state by state, that just makes it even more important and significant and needful to have an organized movement. And when you say, well, what are y'all doing to get this whole thing organized? They quick to tell you, this ain't no organization. You can't pin us into no organization. That's not what we about. Then you're not about reparations. Nope, we about delineation. Well, what is that gonna do? How does delineating acquire any political advantage in the political system? Now, if you say, well, that's not the purpose of it, why are we talking? So you're not about the advancement of the people. So when you beat your chest proud that you ain't got no organization, well, if you have no institution, you have no legitimacy. But you keep screaming reparations. That's why I say it's a trick. It's a cult. Cult adjacent. I can't say it's a cult. I'm not an expert. It's cult adjacent. Because if you could get reparations just by screaming at the top of your lungs, reparations is owed to us, we'd already have it. And when you're not working with the organizations that are already here on the ground doing the work, trying to secure reparations, then you don't really want reparations. You're either if you are an honest advocate, believer in the FBA mystique, whatever that might be, you're either being seduced into a movement that you don't understand, or you're doing the seducing. And I'd love, you can like it, you can hate it, I don't care. I love to bring up this formula when I see this weird, inexplicable gray crowd clouding judgments. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us this formula. He said 85% of the population is blind, deaf, and dumb and lost in the triple stages of darkness. He said 10% of the people know the truth but will not reveal it, will only use it for their own personal good and their own personal agenda. And he said 5% of the population is doing their best to wake up the masses. Now, he called them poor righteous teachers. Shout out to the hip hop group. But that 5% of the population trying to wake people up, trying to teach people, trying to inform people. Hopefully the idea is that the masses will begin to understand when the smoke and mirrors are fogging up their minds. But they don't work with legal infrastructure to get reparations. They don't work with policy access to get reparations. They have no concerns for structural pressure in DC or your very own city to get reparations. But they say they want it. What FBA ideology, what the movement, what the delineation camp promotes is isolationism, is intra-black hostility. And anytime you encounter them, the most that you get from them is, well, they started it. Okay, child. That's all it comes down to. Okay, child. Now, factually, that's incorrect. But still, when you grow up, when you man up, and get this clear, I suffer no fools, I suffer no idiots, I suffer no ignorance or unjustified hostility. Everywhere I see it. Now, if you say, like the other guy, you ain't said, you ain't spoke up, you ain't even familiar with my channel. Now, if you're unfamiliar, please, by all means, it will help me out. You can go digging through the analogs of my videos. I don't mind giving a shameless plug. I got plenty of videos that you can go look at. I called out Frank Zainu in general and generically, all of the, I want to curse, all of the a-hole behavior from continental coons, because that's what I call them. You know, maybe this is part of the issue. A lot of times we became accustomed to who a coon is, what a coon is. We became accustomed to what an Oreo is. We use these words. But we thought these words only apply to the African Americans that go against the group. So maybe it's just a bit of a shock that there can be coons from the continent, that there can be coons in the Caribbean. I think in the Caribbean they call them coconuts. So if we thought it was just restricted to the African Americans, then we just have to deal with the actualization, the realization that a coon has always been applicable to anybody who goes against, works against, speaks against Black unity. Because that's what COINTELPRO was always designed to do, promote disunity. The goal of COINTELPRO, the goal of the Yurugu, the goal of Uncle Sam is diaspora fragmentation. Anti-coalition logic is what they try to promote. Anti-institutional posture and pressure is what they promote. They don't want you to vote. They've spent, centuries trying to make sure we don't vote. They're doing it right now. This year is the midterms is what they call them. They pulling out all the stops trying to make sure that they suppress the vote, because an organized group of voters is a threat. They don't want you organized and they don't want you voting. So I'm here to tell you there is a secret hand behind this FBA zeitgeist. Because at the end of the day, as long as you say reparations is important to you, you must have, that is a fight of institutional proportions. And an anti-institutional ideology cannot win that fight. That's literally taking a knife to a gunfight. So why do the courts matter? Every successful reparations model in history came through legal systems and state mechanisms. Japanese Americans got reparations. We love to say that. Well, why won't they give it to us? Because the Japanese Americans got it. They fought through law. They didn't, you can say, well, I'm going to say they didn't get on the internet, but there was a time, so it was before the internet, but they didn't take out articles in newspapers, because that's what media was. They didn't get on TV stations criticizing other Asian Americans. This for us, not no Chinese. The Filipinos can't get in on this. No, they worked with the lawyers in courts. The Holocaust folk, they got their reparations, not by getting on TV and screaming bloody murder about the Beta Israel. They worked through lawyers in courts. Even the indigenous Native Americans, they got their land settlements because they got with lawyers and they went to courts. The civil rights that we enjoy today, though they're stripping them away, we got them through lawyers in courts. Thurgood Marshall style. So here's the question I don't think enough people are asking. Which one of these groups got reparations from fighting other people who kind of sort of fit their profile? They look like them, but they won't really like them. Did the Japanese Americans go to war? Not from like the European powers. Now they may have did all kinds of things to keep the Ethiopian Jews from getting the rights and the privileges and etc. inside the little false country that they set up by stealing land from the Palestinians. Free Palestine, free the Sudan, free the Congo. Because everyone back then, with each of those groups, they all understood one basic truth: power doesn't respond to media outrage. They hardly respond to outrage in the streets, but they do respond to litigation, legislation, liability. Not one of those movements came from media. Whether you look at the social media of today or legacy media of back in the day. Now, they did back in the day, they used legacy media to raise awareness, but they were raising awareness of who the enemy is. They weren't raising awareness of how you can best fight those who look like you. They didn't use legacy media to promote cultural isolationism. In fact, it can be easily argued that one of the key components of the success, even of the civil rights movement, was its internationalizing what was happening to us locally, so that the whole world would see it. That created more leverage. The struggle wasn't kept domestic. It was globalized. Think globally, act locally. Not one of those movements, not one of those success achievements came from identity nationalism, because that's what FBA really is. The people who got us the gains that we got today, they got it through courts, states, and institutions. Not bickering with other folk. Now that's the coalition reality. That's the political reality. So here's the uncomfortable truth, the uncomfortable facts. Because again, if you say you want reparations and you say you're fighting for reparations, then you have to be politically aware of who to fight with, who to fight against. Now, did you know that about 47% of Democrats agree that reparations should be given? 47%. No, that ain't. It's less than half. They agree that it should be formally studied. Now, here's the trick. Because every serious study concludes with the same thing. There's never been a reparations study that closed the book and said, nah, they don't deserve it. Every study has said, yep, it's justified. But the 47% of Democrats who now are in the funnel of thinking positively about giving us reparations, we didn't get there through isolation. We got there through coalition building. We got there from engagement and negotiation and political pressure and institutional dialogue. That's why you vote in the midterms and in the nationals. If all you do is vote for the president, you done lost the game by far. That's why we got people on the Supreme Court that are against reparations. Because for too long, all we've done is come out in masses for the president. And for anybody, again, this whole we need to jump ship. Well, Republicans, well, we can talk to them too. The same, like there was a time when we didn't have 47% of Democrats over to our side. There was a time when their numbers was just as low as the Republicans. We were talking to the Republicans the same amount of time, the same type of ways that we were talking to the Democrats. The Democrats just finally decided to slowly start waking up. We've been talking to the Republicans for the same amount of time. Their numbers haven't moved. So Democratic support has climbed through the conversations. Republican support has stayed at about 10% or less. 10% is being generous. So we've been talking to them for the same amount of time. Now, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say no black Republican has been pushing for reparations. I'm not going to go out there and say that. Now, I would love for you to send me a link to the ones that have. I haven't found them yet. I have looked. I've tried to find them, but I'm not that good of a researcher. So even in time periods where we were talking to the Republicans, it was mostly African Americans who still identify as Democrat politically, because the Republicans never gave us an inch worth of a reason to switch membership. Because as soon as you said reparations, they said, get out the office. No, I'm not going to talk about that. So yeah, the Republicans, they can be talked to. We talked to them till we're blue in the face, figuratively, politically, and their numbers have not moved. So here's the logic I'm asking about. You can keep screaming at the brick wall, or you can put pressure on the wall that's already cracked. That's not ideology. That's strategy. The choice is yours, of course. Keep singing the praises of the Republicans. And let's see where that gets you. Now, as long as you dancing down the yellow brick road of Republican MAGAism, here's the problem. Here's the real problem. While white MAGA can say all this crazy stuff about being conservative values, and you fall for this mess. But see, white MAGA still holds the keys to the kingdom. Their isolation still pays a dividend to them because the system already serves them. Black MAGAism, it doesn't secure power. It may secure some scraps. You know, Nikki got a couple of scraps thrown at her. Anton Daniels gets some scraps. Frank Zanu gets some scraps. Candace Owens gets some scraps. Lord knows, Clarence Thomas got scraps. But we the people don't get anything with that. Now, historically, those scraps are exactly what they've always been. Pennies. They've exactly what the masses of us have always rejected. You don't sell your soul for that. You don't sell your people out for that. We've always said that's not enough. We've always said we want the whole damn enchilada. Give us everything that's owed. That's the heart and core of reparations. At one point, we said we want our own territory as the reparations. All y'all got to do is give us 7 or 8 states and leave us alone. The Republic of New Africa. That's what we called it. But FBA, Black MAGA logic is effectively saying, give us the crumbs, boss. Reparations becomes the marketing language, not the objective. They don't want reparations. They just want to get their numbers in so they can say, see, master, look, I got them here. Reparations is the emotional architecture. And that's why it's so easy for them to fall into anti-immigrant conversation. That's why it's easy for them to say, hey, I got a bright idea. Let's just not vote. Anti-coalition logic, anti-globalism, anti-institutionalism. Well, if we all decide not to vote at all, then we're showing them our power. You sound insane. In this hyper-nationalistic grievance politics, strongman attractionism, isolationist psychology, something's wrong. Black MAGA is the same structure, different skin as white MAGA. Racism dipped in chocolate. Reparations becomes the bait to lure you in, and all of a sudden, Trump's the best option. You've been bamboozled. So reality check. If you were serious about reparations, then you would be talking about legal defense funds. Brothers get online, sisters get online. They having 4-hour, they having 6-hour, they having 12-hour conversations talking about immigrants. But the name of the video is "We Deserve Reparations." Protect the reparations. No conversation whatsoever about legal defense funds, class action consortiums, constitutional litigation teams, federal lobbying infrastructure. No bill gets passed without federal lobbying. This is on the federal level. You think it doesn't happen? It's the state lobby. Even Malcolm X said we got to take this out of the Uncle Sam jurisdiction and take it into the United Nations international jurisdiction. But to do that, you can't walk around going up and down the block where they ain't even in real life, so that don't happen. But you can't be online talking about every other ethnicity that looks like you is an enemy. That's the end game. They're trying to spoil the system. Poison the well is what they say. They don't want anything to do with reparations research institutes. They don't want anything to do with economic modeling frameworks. But they're quick to tell you, no, we got to protect our reparations because CARICOM ain't gonna give us nothing. CARICOM don't owe you nothing. CARICOM is trying to get reparations for the Caribbean people. They're not even trying to get reparations for individual citizens in the Caribbean. They're trying to get reparations for the systems that are in place to do the repair. But to do that, you got to build coalitions. You got to focus on policy and build institutions. Not YouTube movements. Not Twitter spaces, not TikTok nationalism. Now, well, what are you doing? You sitting up here on YouTube too. I'm at least pointing us in the right direction. And whenever and wherever I find reparations organizations, I link up, connect, have a conversation to see what it is that I can do. I don't participate in smear campaigns. I don't participate in vitriolic, hateful denigration sessions. Why? Because reparations is a legal war, not a culture war. I don't care if brothers and sisters from the continent or from the Caribbean come over here and they want to go to the soccer game, not the American football game. That ain't got nothing to do with it. Reparations is a structural political battle, not a social media fan fest. It's an institutional fight, not an identity fight. And any movement that avoids the courts, avoids coalitions, avoids institutions, avoids legal frameworks, in the name of reparations, ain't a movement at all. It's a lemon squeeze. It's a grievance echo chamber. Because power doesn't fear slogans. Power doesn't fear hashtags. Doesn't fear your sanctimonious outrage. Power fears liability, legislation, and that is built inside the courts, inside coalitions and institutions, not in online enclaves. Now that's what I got. That's my proper perspective. That's my 2 cents on the subject, on the commentary. I would really very much like to see us spend more time talking about and or working on real coalitions. Because like I said, I think we should be fighting to get HR 40 approved. But that's just me. Everybody wants to fight state by state. Well, support the brothers and sisters in the NAACP, because folk always say, well, they ain't doing nothing. They the ones working on reparations in California. Support the brothers and sisters in Evanston, Illinois. It ain't the FBA. It's the legacy organizations that's doing that work today. And they're working with lawyers. They got websites. They having meetings. While FBA is screaming bloody murder online. Now I'm down here in Virginia. We don't have a reparations committee. I've been reaching out and trying to talk to people. I've had a couple of people on this podcast, on this YouTube channel, to have those conversations to see where we can kick up some dust a little. And I'm going to keep on doing it. But what I'm not going to do is just sit idly by or participate in the hate mongering. But ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, thank you for tuning in. This is your brother Shabazz. Sometimes Professor Shabazz, but most times your brother Shabazz. This has been the proper perspective. I would like to know your thoughts, your comments. You can drop them in the chat. You can drop them on the video page. Do you think FBA is honestly working towards attaining reparations? Or do you think they just want to get online and scream and beat their chest? I'd like to hear your opinions. I'd like to hear your thoughts, and we can continue this conversation. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to this channel. I already got my little calendar set up. So I will be, ancestors willing, I will be doing my lives for the next few days at 6 p.m. So make sure you hit the like, share, subscribe, like it says in the corner, and you can join in. I thank everybody for paying attention. If anybody wants to, I don't think anybody is here to do that, but if anybody wanted to come in and ask a question, then I will stay online. But other than that, that's what I got. I thank you for showing up. I thank you for paying attention and listening. And I'll sit for a second to see if anybody says anything in the chat. But other than that, I'm going to get up on out of here. And peace to you. Turn my music back on.